Hello FPL managers and welcome to the best transfers video from Fantasy Football Hub ahead of game week 13 and 14. We're killing 2 game weeks with one video. To do that, I've got, as always, FPL underscore Salah, aka Abdul, with me. Abdul, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, James. Yeah, I'm still recovering a bit from the cold, but yeah, much better than I was last week.
How was your game week 12?
It was okay. I got 74 points, which was like this. I had like the smallest screen arrow from like 41k to 40k.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't have any Spurs players or Jota, and had two players, Rafinha and Diaz, who weren't starting. So I guess considering the circumstances, it wasn't too much of a bad game week.
Yeah, very good. Nicely done. Nicely done. Nicely poised for this kind of triple game week header that we've got over the
Yeah,
next week and a half. Right, okay, let's get straight into it then, because I'm aware we've got to get through extra players in this video, and we'll start with. So this is obviously game week 13's. Best transfers that we'll start with first. And we've got two defenders here, Regulon and Chilwell. Now, the first thing I want to ask you, Abdul, is given how explosive Reece James has been in recent weeks, are you still backing Chilwell if you're going for a Chelsea fullback?
you know what? It's just so close between the two, but I just think over this kind of busy period we've got coming up, I think we've got 10 game weeks in 40 days. They will get rotated, Chilwell and James, surely, in the Premier League games, and just simply because of the fact that when Chilwell gets benched, he doesn't tend to come on. So, there's less chance of one pointer. That's really it. I mean, I think that's all that's really kind of separating them. I mean, if you look at their attacking stats, they're really similar, for XG and for expected assists. So there's not really much kind of, separated in that sense. So yeah, I think it's just due to the fact that the benching scenario with the two.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And Chilwell, plenty of opportunities to score actually in game
Oh
week
yeah.
12. A little bit unfortunate not to get a goal there. A player, however, that did get a goal, we actually backed him in the game week 12
Yeah.
best transfers, was Regulon. And I mean, his performance spoke volumes, didn't it, Abdul? Getting into lots of really good positions.
Yeah, I mean, it was just as kind of as we expected and as we talked about, like with Conte, just let his fullbacks, kind of bomb forward. And yeah, I mean, you saw, I think it was, from a deflected free kick, and he was straight onto that ball, the first man. So yeah, it just shows his attacking intent. We already knew from last season as well. He's got plenty of attacking threat. You've got, especially when it comes to assists. So yeah, I mean, he's got one goal and two assists now, and the next three are as good as they come. They've got Burnley in game week 13, and they've got Brentford and Norwich. So yeah, really good fixtures for him coming up.
Yeah, I've got stats on screen from game week 9, and actually, Regulon's XG better than Chilwell's despite playing a game less. And I consider Chilwell to be one of the biggest goal threats for defenders. So that's certainly promising if you do own Regulon. If
For
only
sure.
Son and Kane had that kind of attacking instinct in the box, eh? Okay, let's move on to your midfielder of choice now, and it is, of course, this man. Didn't disappoint those that went for him in game week
Oh,
12, Diogo Jota. And again, he was another one who could have potentially had more, Abdul.
yeah, again, I mean, I was actually watching that game, and he a great save from Ramsdale, denied his second goal, when Salah crossed it in the box. It was like, about 7-8 yards out. But yeah, he's one of those players where like he gets plenty of chances per game, and it's just obviously, in the past it's just been heavily down to Firmino. The rotationist with him is why we've not, why more managers didn't have him in his team, have him in our teams. But now, Firmino injured, and then if you see the run they've got coming up, they've got Southampton, Everton, Wolves, Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Jota should play all those games.
Mm.
He might get rotated in the sense, kind of reduced minutes in a few of them, but with Firmino out, he should get all those games. And he's if you look at his expected goals, 4.74, and expected assists 2.90, and that's only 9 starts. And he's also got 9 attacking tons of 9 starts. So yeah, I mean, his stats back up his output, and a great option, 7.5 million. I'm personally 99% chance of bringing him in this week as well. for my own team.
Yeah, and Southampton, you know, we may a couple of weeks ago looked at that Southampton fixture and thought maybe this isn't going to be that easy for them given their great underlying defensive numbers that they were posting, but just conceded 2 goals against Norwich and suddenly looking pretty fallible at the back. So it's good timing
Yeah,
for Jota, Salah, Trent owners.
I don't really think it matters much. How good a team's defense is against Liverpool. If you look at the attacking stats, they're like miles ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
as long as they're not playing City or Chelsea, I wouldn't look at who they're playing. I wouldn't look at the defensive numbers when you've got Liverpool playing that good in attack.
It's a great
I think
point.
something
I
points
was
out.
silly enough to
Mm.
do that ahead of game week 12. You looked at Arsenal and thought that, you know, Arsenal have been pretty good. I won't get in Jota
Yeah,
this week. And of course, I was punished. Right, okay. Finally, game week 13's forward. I'm happy to see this guy because unlike Jota, I do actually own Jimenez.
I do. Yeah.
I assume you're picking him predominantly, Abdul, for his fixture in game week 13.
Yeah, I mean, predominantly for his next two fixtures, they've got
Mm.
Norwich and Burnley, and the forwards are, I mean, nobody's performing right now. Not even like the premiums, Kane, Antonio. Tony got a goal last week, finally, but after like 5 blanks in a row. So Jimenez has been really, really consistent. He's only blanked twice over the last 7 games. He's got 5 attacking returns over the last 7. And he's always been like that. He's always been a consistent performer. He's never been explosive. And at times like this, when other forwards aren't performing, he's a perfect guy to have. And his next two are as good as they come. And he's on penalties as well. So yeah, I really like Jimenez as an option this week
Yeah,
and next week as well.
not that anyone's actually getting penalties at the moment, but it's nice. It's nice to know
Yeah,
that he is, just in case.
yeah.
What would you say, Abdul, with regards to Antonio owners at the moment who are maybe looking at Jimenez's, next 2 fixtures? They turn pretty sour after that Liverpool, Man City, Brighton, but for the next 2, and thinking potentially there's a like for like replacement there, isn't there, budget wise? Is that a move that you're considering, or do you think it's still folly to be getting rid of Antonio?
It's tough because Antonio's got a tough run for the next 4, but then from game week 16, their fixtures turn up massively again, and you're going to want them back in. So, honestly, I really think it's team dependent. For me personally, I've got Antonio, and I think I'll be keeping him because I think I've kept him this long. I can bench him this week, for the City game.
Mm.
And then he's got Brighton at home in the midweek fixture in 14. So that he could well get returns in that game. It's not a bad fixture for West Ham. And then 2 more game weeks, and then you're going to want him back in again. So for me, I think he's a keep. And I think the time to get rid of him was probably a few game weeks ago. So that ship's probably sailed, I think.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Lots of money tied up in Antonio for a lot of FPL managers.
Exactly, it's the money as well. Yeah.
Right, we move very briefly on to game week 14's best transfers. I know we've got to kind of cast our minds forward here. It might actually be interesting, though, not to have that recency bias of the most recent game week playing on our minds when we look at these. So, firstly, really interesting choice of defender. Abdul, why did you go for Ben Johnson?
And I've gone for Ben Johnson because he's a 4 million defender at the moment. I think he's 3.9 or 4. And he's playing in that right back spot. He's actually taken Kufal's spot, and I thought as soon as Kufal was fit again, he was going to come straight back in. But that's not been the case, and he's kept his his position. It seems to be his position to lose now. But I think at 4 million, he's a great option to bring in. They've got Brighton at home in game week 14, which is a good fixture to play him in. And then they've got a few tough fixtures coming up with Chelsea and Arsenal, but in those fixtures, he can easily be benched. And then from game week 16, as I mentioned earlier with Antonio's fixtures, West Ham's fixtures, pick up massively. And he's a great option to have as your first bench player, or you can use him as a rotator. But I think game week 14 is a good time to bring him in.
Yeah, we've got his defensive stats on screen at the moment. Attacking wise, not a huge amount to write home about underlying wise, but we know that he does have a finish in his locker, as he proved a couple of games ago. So he does have a goal to his name. There's always the opportunity for more in that West Ham side. Your midfielder, Heung-min Son, the ever popular Heung-min Son, the ever disappointing Son. But tell me why you're backing him again against Brentford in game week 14.
Yeah, again, I just think with Son, he has been disappointing, but I think his his stats, historically, and his fixtures, in the short term are probably too good to ignore. And out of Son and Kane, I think I prefer Son. So they've got Brentford at home in 14, and they've got Norwich at home in 15. So that's those two games are as good as they come, and he's a player that you can just kind of keep in your team, kind of for the long term as well. So I think for those who don't have a Spurs player in, I think Game Week 14 might be a good time to actually bring one of them in, and for me, it has to be Son.
The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that I've made the stupid mistake of keeping the defensive stats on when I put these slides together. So we've had Ben Johnson's defensive stats. We've now got Son's defensive stats, which is interesting to nobody at all. Abdul, I apologise for that. Guys, I'll try and put on his attacking stats in post-production. If I fail to do that, then you'll have to just go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/Opta and look at them for yourself. Okay, and finally, we've got Callum Wilson's defensive stats here as well. He is the forward of choice for Game Week 14 for you, Abdul, and it's easy to see why with that fixture.
Yeah, his next, from 14 onwards, the next three are really good. They've got Norwich obviously at home, which is probably the best fixture of the season for Newcastle. And then they've got Burnley at home, and then they've got Leicester away. Leicester's defence, hasn't been great this season, so that's a good fixture for him for him as well, I think. So, yeah, I think more importantly, with Eddie Howe coming in, his old manager, he played under him for like 2.5, 3 seasons with Bournemouth, so they know each other well. He scored a lot of goals under him, and we know that Eddie Howe is just kind of, he's a manager that just kind of attacks. Doesn't really, pay much attention to defence. If we're going by what happened at Bournemouth, in his time at Bournemouth. So I think Newcastle will score more goals under him, and I think Wilson's going to be the one to benefit the most probably.
Yeah, incredibly frustrating. A couple of managers did plump for him, particularly those playing a wild card ahead of Game Week 12. And I have to say, I think they were quite hard done by. It was a bit Antonio-esque in a way that Newcastle scored 3 goals and Wilson didn't get a single involvement, but he did look good. And I think that's important. He had lots of chances, one of which he definitely should have buried. So, I think things still are boding well for him. Let's quickly talk about captains, Abdul, before we finish. I'm still fairly confident I know what you're going to go for, particularly in this game week. There is a kind of growing narrative around potentially captaining, one of the fullbacks that have also been incredibly consistent of late. Firstly, let's just talk philosophically about the merits of captaining a defender. Is it something you've ever done? Would you consider it this season?
I think I've only, in my whole FPL career, only ever once captained defender, and it was in double game week. It was Laursen for Aston Villa, like back in 2008 or 9 or something. But obviously, the kind of the fullback situation, wasn't as it is back then, and now obviously, I think it's a lot more justified to captain, defenders, especially the fullbacks, than it was a few years ago. But yeah, if you've captained like Trent, Salah, James, over the last few weeks, and you'd have benefited. For me, just with the form that Salah's in, I still think it's a bit risky. But I guess if you are going to go for someone outside Salah, if you're kind of the maverick nature, then the fullbacks are the best alternative there, I think.
It's easy, isn't it, to see how there is that temptation, but you only need to look at Salah. If for example, you've already mentioned the save that Ramsdale made from Jota. Had that gone in, Salah may have picked up 2 or 3 bonus points, and suddenly looking at a 13, 14 point game week. Good stuff. All right, Abdul. Well, thanks ever so much for joining me for this, guys. As you probably guessed, we won't be doing a video ahead of Game Week 14, which would have been early next week. We will try to return before Game Week 15, however. If we're unable to do that, it'll all come down to scheduling that will be figured out probably next week. Do keep an eye out on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk because there is an article version of this video. There's best transfers. There's also best forwards, midfielders and defenders as well. They get posted every game week. So do look out for those. And thank you for joining us. Good luck for Game Week 13 and Game Week 14. Abdul, let's hope next time we talk, we're off the back of 2 green arrows. But I can't hold my breath. Until
It's
then,
always a
mate.
tough time of the year. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. See
indeed.
you guys.
Good luck for both game weeks. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.
You do it right.